Okay, so this is lecture 1 for the Interpreting in Superior Courts Misdemeanor class. Before we begin with the class, let's go over some additions that we have for this year, this quarter. And one of the main additions, besides the fact that we have a background that looks a little bit better, way better, I should say. One of the main additions that we added that I'm pretty excited about it is the fact that I will now be able to monitor you while you're doing the practices at home in the computer. And by that I mean while you're taking this class, when I play a practice, I'll be able to monitor you and then send you a video with your interpretation, with what you were saying, and with my comments on your interpretation. So that means that I can keep, this was one thing that we've been after for quite some time, but now the technology, we were able to implement and integrate different things here and there, and came up with a good format. I used it in the previous class, and it's really, really good. So that means that I will be able to monitor you practices when you're practicing for the first time, give you some feedback and so on and so forth while you are in the classroom. Since many of you don't show up to the live sessions and so on and so forth, we have no way of knowing and then how you're doing. And remember, my main concern was always the fact that this is about interpreting, so I need to be able to see how you're interpreting, right? But we didn't have that technology, we didn't have that integration yet, but we do now. Of course, it will require that you're attending this session live, because if you don't attend this live, then there is no way for me to monitor you. If you watch this class on demand, like if you're watching it on demand, like on Tuesday, because you couldn't attend it on Saturday, then I can monitor you. And it kind of defeats the purpose. For students who are unable to attend live, then they should really go to the online program, the on-demand program. So I'm establishing certain rules in terms of grading you for this class. And the first rule is that you can miss one class when you're not being live, and it's fine. But in the other ones, you're going to have to be live. You have to be present so I can monitor you. You should be able to monitor each of you at least twice, depending on the amount of practice that we have, at least once or maybe even twice during this next 4 weeks. I'm not going to give you a score necessarily for that. However, the final exam for this class will be made out of 2 components, oral and written, which means that you're going to be graded also on your oral skills. So if you don't do your practices here in class, or if you don't do your practices in the lab, then there's going to have an effect on your final grade for this course. So we will discuss that as the time as the final exam approaches. But the whole point is that I want you to be here live if you're going to be here live. Otherwise, you should really be taking the on-demand program. I've noticed that in the previous quarters, we had like 25 people register and only 8, 9 were actually, and right now I see about half of the people that are in this class, or maybe even less than half, that are actually connecting live. So we need to correct that issue, and in order to do that, we're implementing, now that we have the capability, the ability to monitor you real time, which is really, really, really a big asset, honestly. Let's see here, 1 second. I'm trying to find out why this thing is not showing. Just give me 1 second, please. I need to access again in case there is any question. Okay, so I just want to make sure. 1 second, please. So, as I was saying, the whole point is for you to be as prepared as possible to pass the state exam and to become the best interpreter. And the only way you could do that is if you are actually, if we have this tool of a monitor, and as a result of it, you also have the ability. To to know what are the issues that you need to work on. The question is, for the oral section of the final, is it recorded with audio or video or audio? We haven't decided yet, but it will probably be on week number 5 when we meet for 3 hours. That's going to be where the oral will take place. And then you're going to have a week to complete the written portion that you can access afterwards. So you're going to have to be here on that date, the date that you're taking your final examination, okay? So that you can, so like we can monitor you. So in order for us to be able to monitor you, this is how we're going to do this. And I'm going to get ready for it right now. You can see on top of the player, you're going to see a button that says monitoring. It says live lecture week 1 monitoring. Click on that one. A new page will open, and it's going to ask you if you want to download your Zoom application or not, which you should be able to download it if you haven't downloaded before. Sometimes if you already have Zoom, it opens up directly. And then once you are in the Zoom, you're going to be in what is called a waiting room. I'm not going to be accessing you, allowing you to access to see me at this point. I will be selecting people randomly from that waiting room, and while you are doing the practice at home, that's where I'm going to be able to, you won't even notice, honestly, that I'm actually monitoring you. You may, if you see depending on your computer, really. Now, once you access, what I need you to do is I need you to rename yourself and put your last name, then hyphen, and then your email address. Make sure you write the correct email address. So I want you to rename yourself by writing your last name, hyphen, and then your email address, okay? The reason being that when I finish monitoring you, what will happen is that a video is created, and then once we get it, we send it to you to your email address. So if it is already in your name, then it's much easier for us to it expedites the process. Now you will be receiving this your link. For those of you who are monitored today, for example, you'll receive that on Monday by 1 p.m. In some instances, you'll get it even earlier than Monday, but we cannot guarantee that it's going to be before Monday. Possibly it will be, but if not, it will be Monday. So you'll have sufficient time to you're not going to get it automatically. It takes a little bit of time. The reason being that we want to put that as part of the record. We want to notify the live evaluators of your performance here. So when you go to live sessions, they have some more information on your performance and so on and so forth. Everybody should be accessing this. If you don't, then I won't monitor you. But remember, I have to be able to monitor you at least once or twice, if not more, per session. It depends on how many attend. Like if, as it is right now, I can monitor you maybe almost everybody today and almost everybody next week. So you have to be able to access it, okay? So you have to be able to access this Zoom by clicking on that monitoring. And once you access, stay in the waiting room. You don't have to do anything. Just change your name. I see a couple of the students here who don't have like Judith Murillo and Stephanie Barrero. It's better if you write your last name, hyphen, and email address. So rename yourself. If you don't know how to rename yourself, it's okay. We'll find your email address. So do not worry. Cervantes is good. That's the way we want it. But you don't have to. You do not have to. Put the email address if you don't want to. It's just take a little bit more work for us to do that. But what I do want you to do is to be able to access it, okay? Now your camera can be off. You don't have to have the camera on, but it's up to you. You can have it on if you want. It doesn't matter. When I monitor you, you won't necessarily see me. You will see SCSI showing on your screen, most likely. And so what I suggest is now you just, you minimize Zoom completely, as if it was not there. Put it in your desktop, and then just make sure you concentrate on the lecture. I see a lot of people coming in. That's actually great. I do see one by the number 183331. That person either changed the name or send me in the questions here what is your actual name, okay? Because I don't know where to send that when the number is 1833. 3-1 or something like that. You don't have to click on anywhere. So we do them. Well, you should download Zoom. You should do all that. If you monitor voluntarily, I mean, if you are here, I'm going to monitor you randomly depending on the number of practice and the number of people that are there. You don't have to, you have to make sure that you are in the waiting room. You should be able to be in a waiting room at this moment. It says something, it talks about a proctor admitting you or whatever. We're going to change that message because it's a little bit confusing. But if you see that message, that's perfectly fine. That's the whole point of you being in that waiting room. So you're going to be in that room, and then I'm going to, when I start the practice today, I'm going to be clicking on each of you, and then I'm going to be monitoring for a period of time, create the video. You will be able to hear yourself, or if you have the camera on, then you will be able to see yourself as well. And then after all that is done, I won't even interrupt you or anything. You won't even notice. And once it's done, I'll put you back in the waiting room, and then you will be able to see me, and I will make comments regarding your performance. So the comments are going to be after I monitor you for a period of time. So I'm not interfering with you at all. So you should really concentrate on the screen, on me, on teaching, right? And the questions that you have and everything like that. And I do have everybody here, I think. I do have everybody, so that's great, except that student who has as a name 183331. I don't know who that student is. So if you could please tell me in the question here, my name is such and such for 183331. That's what it shows on your Zoom when you have your name. Okay, so this should be done every week. So one of the things that I always tell students, just come like 5 minutes earlier, set up the monitoring session. It takes maybe a couple of minutes, 3-4 minutes, and then the class will begin. I don't have to repeat all this. I won't repeat all this anyway every time. And then when you come in, you are already there, okay? We could have integrated this in a different way, but we need your permission. You need to actually allow us to access your microphone to be able to hear you, okay? So that's the way you are doing that. Otherwise, it will not be possible. So right now, I'm not listening or seeing anybody. You're in the waiting room. But when I start playing the tape later on, you will notice that I will be accessing it. Okay, thank you, Moreno Gershman. Perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so having said that, the question, of course, is what happens when you receive your video during the week? Well, I will announce it next week, but I will have a 1 hour per week office hour. We're going to have 1 hour each week, office hours that I will be available, and you're more than welcome to come into the office hour and discuss, okay, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? Whatever question you may have on that particular on that particular audio or video that I'm going to send you. The idea eventually is for you, or for us to have more, for me to have more office hours, and then to get some feedback directly from me instead of going to the live sessions. So we're going to kind of, that's the idea. But you should also go to the live sessions to do additional practices. So the plan for this class is you learn the material for this class, you do the practices while I play it here in class. I monitor you, send you the video. If you have a question, you can always contact me regarding those comments. And then during the week, you can go and access a live instructor. Okay, I'm going to give you the times now because I know that the site doesn't show it. It says that it will be updated on the 10th, but we haven't gotten all the responses from all the different instructors. So it will be really updated on Monday, but I'll let you know when your office hours, when your live sessions will be held. And when they start. And then you can go to those live sessions, if you have some lab if you're working on, let's say, practice number 3, just to give you an example, this week, because that's the practice I assigned. So you work throughout the week, and then you can access the live sessions to find out, how you're doing. You can ask the instructor, hey, can you listen to me and see how you're doing? So that when I play that practice the following Saturday in class, then you can really score well, because I am going to grade you only on practices that I will announce the week before, and I will tell you next week we're going to have practices I'm going to grade you. So there's going to be a grade also that will be associated with this class besides the final exam grade. That gives you an opportunity, in case you don't do well in the final for whatever reason, gives you an opportunity to kind of build up your grade that way. So that's kind of the plan. And the whole idea about implementing this is to make you, provide you with a better service, but you got to use it. So when I monitor, like for example, I'm going to be monitoring today, and there's no grade whatsoever. Most likely next week there won't be any grade, but week number 3 there will be. So in week number 2 I will tell you, okay, I'm going to be playing the following practices that are in the lab. I'm going to play it in class. You're going to be interpreting. I'm going to monitor you, and I'm going to give you a grade. So to prepare for it, for week number 3, for example, for those practices that I'm going to assign today, you may want to go to the live session on Mondays or Saturdays. I'll give you the times that are available, and ask that instructor, how am I doing? I mean, do I need to work a little bit harder on this side, on this part, or this other part, or whatever the case is. So that's kind of the way we're going to do this. So this actually, I'm very excited because finally we have the technology, and this is really closing the loop for us, for me at least. Because now I can monitor you, I have more information about you. You can't really, the only thing that is required is that you do attend the live sessions. Not the live sessions, the lectures live, do not come, if you can't do that for whatever reason, and you're used to watching the lectures later on, a few days later, that's not going to work. Maybe one time, but not every week, because in that case you should be on the on-demand program, not on the hybrid program. The hybrid program gives you the ability, we may even name it differently, gives you the ability to be monitored real time, whereas the on-demand gives you the ability to attend on demand and also be monitored at a given time, but for a much longer duration, almost 1 hour. Whereas here, you'll notice that my evaluations in each day, or my monitoring each day, will probably be 5 minutes or so, 5-6 minutes each, okay? So having said that, let's talk a little bit about the live sessions. So we have this for this quarter. You're going to see that on your site when you enter. You're going to see that on Monday after 1 p.m. But the live sessions will be on Monday, and this starts this Monday on 1/17 from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And the other option you have is Saturdays, which starts next week on 1/22, and it's going to be from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. That's it, 3. Okay? So those are the live sessions that will be announced. You will see them when you access on Monday, but I'm just giving you already the information because there's one coming up this Monday in case you want to access. Maybe you want to check how your interpreting skills, your simultaneous skills are, and all that stuff. All right, the rest is pretty much the same, but you can see that there are a lot of additions to this program that will make this program better and will increase the pass rate now that they're offering the exam. So we want to make sure that you're really ready for it. Now let's talk about this class and how this works and what you're going to learn and all this stuff. I can tell you right now that this is going to be one of the most important courses you're ever going to take in this training program, and this is really where you will develop the simultaneous skills to a level that you probably couldn't believe you could. The key is that this is really one course divided into 2 parts. You have the misdemeanor now for the next 5 weeks, then we're going to have a 1 week break, and then we're going to have 5 more weeks of felony. course. Both those two are kind of together. We split it into misdemeanor and felony, but they are all together. Now, what happened in splitting this whole course like this is that it put a lot of work on the misdemeanor class and not that much work on the felony. We purposely did that so that when you actually go to the felony, you can do more practice of what you were struggling with in the misdemeanor course. So this is going to be a tough course. It's probably going to be the toughest one that you're going to be taking. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be a really, really tough course. The material, you probably downloaded the material. It's in your menu on the upper left corner where it says download class manual. When you look at that class manual, it's pretty thick class manual. Has a lot of pages. I think it's about 40 pages. And the way we are going to be working here with this material is you are going to have some work from the lab that I will assign every week. And that lab comes with the script, so you're going to have some work there. That part, potentially you're going to be tested here in class when I monitor you live in week number 3, for example. I give you 2 weeks to develop it, right, to practice. So there's going to be that part of this, which is the laboratory. And then there is also the material here in class, okay, the class manual. Those are the 2 things that you're going to be concerned about during this course. The lab is actually, the material that is assigned for the lab is that what makes you grow as an interpreter, and particularly in the simultaneous mode. So that material is suitable for you to work in the courts as an interpreter and also to be ready for your state exam. The material that you get from here is more suitable towards working as an interpreter and a little bit less suitable for the state exam, but it does help a little bit. Why do I say that? Well, besides us interpreting in court verbally, we also sometimes get to do some forms that are actually pre-printed forms that we have to actually read in English, but you have to say it in Spanish as to what it says. Those forms are part of our job whenever the defendant enters a plea. You may remember from the simultaneous course that the defendant was given an offer, and the defendant said, no, I don't want to take that offer in that course. In this course, from day 1 today, you're going to hear that the defendant will say, yes, I do take that offer. And when the defendant takes that offer, then that sets in motion a proceeding before the judge. And that proceeding before the judge, basically all it does is it confirms what the offer is, and the judge makes sure that the defendant's rights are not violated and that everybody is in agreement with everything that has to do with the procedural portion of this criminal case. And in that case, the defendant will have to waive and give up his rights and so on and so forth. And you will see that how it works actually today. We're going to look into that today. Well, in real life, when that happens, an offer is conveyed. You remember from the simultaneous course, you will go with the attorney to the cell and talk to the defendant. And the defendant now, if the defendant says, yes, I do accept the offer, I do take the offer, then the attorney, what's going to do is going to give the defendant a form, and that form is kind of pre-printed, but it has some comments from the attorney and so on and so forth, and it has to do with your rights, the consequences of your plea, and so on and so forth. And the interpreter is supposed to read that form, which is usually 6, 7, 8 pages long, to the defendant in the cell. And the defendant is supposed to put the initials in each box. There are boxes in each form, like number 1, and it says whatever it says, and then there is a box, number 2, and so on and so forth. So unless the attorney put an X on that box, then anything else, any other number will apply. So if in number 1 has an X, then you don't have to read whatever is under number 1. But if it doesn't, then you do have to read it. So you as the interpreter will read that form, and then the defendant will listen to it, and then at the very end, the defendant will put the initials in the form, you sign the form, you give that to the attorney, and that's kind of an intermediary step between accepting or taking the offer and appearing before the judge. So everything happens the same day. So it takes the interpreter maybe 10, 15 minutes to do that. Well, those forms are located here in this class manual now. So those are the forms that we are going to be discussing. And those forms include information that will be used later on in the proceeding before the judge. So the offer is conveyed, the defendant takes the offer. The interpreter reads the forms to the defendant. The defendant signs the form along with the interpreter and the attorney. The defendant is now taken to the courtroom, and then the interpreter interprets everything there. Some of the verbiage that is used in that hearing before the judge comes from these forms. So the form should always be studied before you do the lab practices, because here you're going to be able to learn many terms that come out in the lab practice, because after all, the lab practice is what's going to happen in the third stage when you appear before the judge. So the first stage is the regular pretrial hearing that we saw in simultaneous. When the defendant takes it, then the forms come in. That needs to be studied first every week. So in lecture 1, you're going to have to study on page 3 a misdemeanor plea form and court proceeding form number 1, and starts on page 3 and it ends on page 9. So that's what you're going to study first. Once you study it, which will take you a couple of days, then you go to the lab and you're going to do the practice that I will assign shortly once we get into the lab practices. That practice that I assign shortly corresponds to the actual proceeding that the defendant will have to go through before the judge, so that that offer that he took, that he accepted, becomes valid under the eyes of the law. And in that proceeding, the interpreter is going to be interpreting everything that is happening in the case. And that's why that's going to be in your lab. So by studying the forms first, then you have a head start as to what may come out in the lab. Now, there are other things that come out in the lab, and you're going to get a script of that. But regardless of the fact that there are other things, at least you already know the majority of the terms that are going to be used in that proceeding at the very end of the sequence. So it's the offer conveyed, offer accepted, read the forms, then appear in court and interpret what has been, what is happening, what happens in court, which we're going to see shortly what that is.